Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Curious About Bitcoin. I'm your host, Brian Rothenberg. Today, I wanted to do a video on why you need to get off of zero Bitcoin. The vast majority of the world today owns zero Bitcoin. And the tragic part is there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. And many organizations are out there gobbling up Bitcoin like there's no tomorrow. If we were to divide Bitcoin across all 8 billion people in the world, you would get a fraction of each Bitcoin that would be available to all of those people. So I urge you, for the reasons we've talked about in other videos and reasons I'll talk about in future videos, to get into Bitcoin. And if you're not convinced yet, what I want to do in this video today is try to convince you to get off of zero. Put an allocation towards it. Put $10 in. Start watching what happens to Bitcoin. And what you will see happen over time is the value of your Bitcoin will increase in dollar terms, and the value of your dollars will not go as far as they used to. And so that will probably contribute to you wanting to buy more Bitcoin. So that kind of brings to the first point I wanted to make is that Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation. We can't print more Bitcoin. There's a fixed supply of 21 million coins. All of those coins will be mined by 2140. 99% of them will be mined by 2035, I believe. But there's only about 5% left to be mined. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not a market or a supply of Bitcoin. There still is. There are people who mined them many years ago when they were, much smaller in terms of dollar cost, and now they're over $100,000 a piece. But you can't print more Bitcoin. Central banks can and have been printing more fiat currency. And so we're already seeing this within the US. There's more money in the M2 money supply than ever before. It's just slightly more than it was a few years ago, but a lot of people think the Federal Reserve is going to start printing more money very, very soon. And so this is a hedge against inflation that's likely coming. And so maybe you want to make an allocation so that you pay attention a little bit more. Doesn't have to be a big amount of money, and you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. And that's the second thing that I wanted to bring up here that we really haven't talked about on this channel. Bitcoin is denominated in Bitcoin, but there are smaller denominations of Bitcoin as well. It's similar to how we have cents for dollars, and almost all currencies have, pence for the UK, pound, and things like that. There's smaller units of account. And for Bitcoin, we call those smaller units of account Satoshis, after Satoshi Nakamoto, who was the inventor of Bitcoin and released the white paper and was the first person mining Bitcoin. That doesn't really matter. What you want to know is that there are 100 million Satoshis in one Bitcoin. So you can buy in denominations of $1, of $5, of $10, of $10 million, of $10 billion into Bitcoin. And you will be able to buy Bitcoin in fractions that will get you the proportional amount of that. 100 million Satoshis in one Bitcoin is like taking $110,000, which is around where the Bitcoin price is today, and dividing it by 100 million. You'll be able to get a few of those things, but a few of those things still add up, and you still have a percentage of that one Bitcoin that will be equal to one Bitcoin throughout the rest of time. So that's the second thing that I kind of wanted to really address is you don't have to wait until you have lots of money. Start investing a little bit at a time now. If anything that I've said so far is really kind of resonating with you about hedging on what might be happening. Third thing that I want to point out about Bitcoin is that it is a store of value. So when we're talking about it being an inflation hedge, it is basically a better store of value than a lot of other things that we have, at least in my opinion, and the opinion of lots of other people. But if you look at the history that I was showing on other videos as well, we see the price appreciation of Bitcoin beating out everything, whether that's real estate, whether that's the Magnificent Seven, whether that's certainly other stocks in the stock market or bonds, everything. And so that's an asset that I want to be a part of. One thing you do have to be aware of is that Bitcoin will be volatile. So it can go up quite a lot very quickly. It can also drop quite a lot very quickly. Now, I don't personally expect Bitcoin to drop more than 60% from any highs that we see in the future. but that still puts a floor price that I'm expecting that I need to make sure that I'm comfortable holding my Bitcoin with at that price so that I don't sell at the low and buy it at the highs. So with the money that I hope that you will, after this video or other videos of mine, put into Bitcoin, I hope that you're thinking about that for the long term. And that's another point that I wanted to bring up, which is if you measure Bitcoin over a long enough cycle, which is about 4 years, Bitcoin has never been down if you invested in it and held for 4 years. And so that's the time frame that if you're looking at, it's a definite safe investment there. If you have a shorter time frame, I still think it's a lot safer than putting your money in cash or CDs or other things like that because of the appreciation. But there is that risk. So that's something that I wanted to mention there. The next thing that I wanted to mention about why it's getting safer and safer for you to put money into Bitcoin and why you should get off zero is because lots and lots of institutions are getting off zero. So Fidelity has been an organization that has had crypto assets that you could trade on their platform for a long time. They've been a leader in this space. BlackRock started a new Bitcoin ETF last year, as did a couple of other firms. Bridgewater Associates are in the Bitcoin market. There are companies like Strategy. There are companies like Semler Scientific, like Block, like Tesla that have invested some of their corporate treasuries in Bitcoin. And the more companies that do this, the more likely that those proceeds are going to go to those shareholders rather than directly to you. And if Bitcoin is, as I say it is, the most pristine asset in the world, the hardest form of money in the world, the best form of money, which again we will cover in future videos in more detail, don't you want to have a piece of that directly rather than through a company investment or rather than through an IOU from an institution like Fidelity or BlackRock? I personally want to have the physical investment there based on the thesis that I have. And it's getting a lot safer to hold those things and to make sure that you can keep and hold on to it. I remember that there was an episode of The Big Bang Theory where they said, didn't we have a hard drive with a bunch of Bitcoin on it and hasn't the price appreciated? And that was probably close to 10 years ago that episode was. So it was probably, 5 years before that they were mining Bitcoin and they couldn't find the hard drive. Those days are, I don't want to say over because that's still up to you to keep, track of your keys to the crypto, which again, we will talk about in a future video, but it's a lot easier. There's a lot of systems in place that can make it easy on yourself to hold that. Or, and I don't recommend this, you can hold it on the exchange where you buy it. And we'll talk about how you can buy on exchanges in another video and the pros and cons of doing that. But the big things about Bitcoin that are also important for you to know is this is your money. And for the first time, you can have security because Bitcoin is decentralized. You don't have to hold it in a bank like you do with your US dollars or other currencies. You don't have to hold it in a vault or a safe necessarily like you do with gold or other precious metals or things like that. And there's security around this because it's a decentralized network. People are running nodes throughout the world that are keeping track of the ledger. And if you have a wallet and you have access to that wallet, which is basically your key to open that up, then everybody else in the world knows that inside that wallet is your amount of Bitcoin, whether that's 1 Satoshi or 100 million Satoshis or 10 billion Satoshis that you have in that wallet there. And so that's another piece of this that we will talk about for sovereignty and other ways so that you can actually physically hold your money and become your own bank and potentially do other cool things with your Bitcoin. Now, I talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the video, but there is a limited supply of Bitcoin. And throughout this video, I've talked about reasons why more people are buying it. And I will be the first one to admit, 90 days ago, did not own any Bitcoin at that time. And now my entire net worth is denominated in Bitcoin or companies that invest in Bitcoin, but mainly it's in Bitcoin. And I try to hold as few US dollars as possible because I really see the growing demand. I see it as inflation is going to kill the value of the US dollar just as it has in the past. We did a video on that yesterday. And over time, we're going to see more money printing. So that means the value of the dollars are going to go down, but we're going to see things like assets go up. but wages will not. So if you invest in stocks, you'll probably do decently. If you invest in real estate, you'll probably do decently. But if you invest in Bitcoin, you'll do better than everything. I honestly, firmly believe that, and I hope to back it up on this channel for you as we continue on this discussion. What we're going to see in the future, and we're seeing it every day, is more and more people adopt Bitcoin. So today I saw an interview with a prominent Bitcoin figure who was on a podcast with another prominent figure. The second person there is probably a household name. I won't say it now because I want to do a proper introduction to the first person who's prominent within the Bitcoin community, but that's probably going to drive more people into Bitcoin. Why do I say that? It's for the reason that that's exactly what drove me into Bitcoin. This prominent Bitcoiner on a podcast that I listened to, which was not about Bitcoin, not really about, money specifically or the Federal Reserve or anything like that. It's about, investing in markets and companies and jobs and things like that. I will tell this story in a future video. But I saw this person and they were basically doing what's called a speculative attack on the dollar, speculative attack on the dollar. And what that means is they are basically doing an arbitrage of the dollar, taking dollars in and buying Bitcoin with those dollars by issuing shares of stock or issuing bonds and things like that to get more dollars in the door that they can convert into Bitcoin. And I was just like, wow, if this is legal, if this is actually working, I need to be a part of this. And today I am. And I want to explain to you why it is such a neat strategy that this company is doing. But this is my call to action to you at the end of this video. Bitcoin is here to stay. It's going one of two directions. It's going to infinity or it's going to zero. And with the adoption that we have today, I think the odds of it going to zero have never been lower and is probably as close to non-zero as anything has ever been in the history of the world, unless you know that it's zero. And so I think you need to spend more time learning about Bitcoin. That's why I created this channel, to hopefully bring more people into this ecosystem to learn about it, just as I did. And hopefully what you will find in going through this is that Bitcoin helps you improve your financial future. And with that financial future improvement, it will improve other parts of your life, like it has for me. If you found this video helpful, I am very happy that you did. Please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you're looking for more, leave a comment with your thoughts on this video. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments as well. I look at all the comments on my channel. And if there are thoughts that you have about questions that you have about Bitcoin or other things you'd like me to cover, please put that down in the comments as well. I'm happy to do more videos on them. Thank you all for your time and attention today, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.